Hi there and welcome back to another That Movie Show review. On today's show I'm going to be reviewing Basic Instinct. This is a film I watched recently when I was doing my video all about how to write great villains, so I used this as research, so it's something that's fresh in my mind. I'm going to start with the visuals. Now, in Basic Instinct there is some great camera work which establishes some good power dynamics and ramps up the intensity and tension in quite a lot of scenes. It's something that Paul Verhoeven does extremely well in this film. A lot of the time there are shots and decisions made in terms of composition which are intentionally used to place doubt in the viewer's mind as to who they should think the villain is, and that's done masterfully well. I enjoyed the fact that the film was edited really well as well. I didn't spot anything that really annoyed me and nothing really stood out. In fact, Paul Verhoeven did a pretty good job of making me feel visually immersed throughout the entire film, and I'm going to give the visuals a 7 as a result. For the audio, I'm only going to give it a 6.5. I gotta be honest, I'm not a massive fan of the soundtrack for Basic Instincts, although weird, long, streaky violin playing that goes on, it's not to my taste. I mean, it does create tension for the scenes, but I can't tell if it's creating tension or just getting on my nerves a bit. Either way, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not to my particular taste. The performance is by far and away the strongest category for Basic Instinct. Michael Douglas is pretty much good in everything that he's ever in, but in particular in this film he's extremely good at playing the duality of this role that's really conflicted as someone who wants to try and do better but at the same time is consistently pulled into the darker side of life. And I think all credit needs to go to the supporting cast as well. I didn't really spot any one performance that was worse than any other, and everybody seemed to play their roles really well and understand what their function is in the greater story of the film. I have to give the biggest credit to Sharon Stone. This is a phenomenal role for any actress to play, and she plays it magnificently. Managing to be equal parts sexy, seductive and manipulative at the same time throughout the entire film, it's very hard to get a read on what her character is trying to convey in any given moment. She really does manipulate not just the characters in the film, but the audience as well by most of the time. So I'm giving this section 8.5. The performances are super strong and it really does hold this film up incredibly well. For the writing, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think Joe Eszterhas wrote an amazing script, and it's not really any wonder that after this film came out, there was a slew of these erotic thrillers throughout the 90s which were never really as good as Basic Instinct with the exception of Body Heat. But what I did think Eszterhas did really well was he created such a strong female role, and I keep hearing these days everybody talking about we need more strong female roles in films, and this is a prime example of an incredibly well written, incredibly strong role. The female character is in control of every single scene throughout the entire film. It doesn't get much stronger than that, and literally has everybody at her beck and call. In addition to that, it has a plot which has a lot of twists in it and has a lot of suspense in it, but you can never really guess where it's going. Even at the very end, it's left ambiguous enough that you can't really make a full decision as to whether or not person X is the killer or someone else is the killer. It's very difficult to do that, and I think that is a sign of quality writing, because it's not as if there's not enough information there. There's actually so much information about so many characters that it's very difficult to make a decision on it. I thoroughly enjoy this film start to finish. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so when I watched it recently I was very curious as to how I would approach this film, given that the last time I watched it I wasn't really analysing writing quite as much as I do now. I was very happy to see that the script for this has held up incredibly well over time and it's still thoroughly enjoyable even today. So I give the writing 8.5 as well. Overall it scored 76%, and I think it's an immensely enjoyable film with magnificent performances throughout, and Sharon Stone really should be applauded more for just how good her performance is in this film. I think perhaps she was a bit of an underused talent of the 90s. I know she was in a lot of films, but she was never really given roles as good as this to roll with the exception of Casino, and I think she could probably have done a lot more had she been used properly.